Have you ever heard the saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast? Well, I'm going to introduce you to a person who not only agrees with you, but explain why you're right. Today we're going to look at KARL von Clausewitz. He is the West's probably most famous philosopher of war, and he's a really interesting character. And we're going to get into him in this series. So, to give a good setting, in 1870, specifically 1871, something happens. It's earth-shattering. It's the Franco-Prussian War, and the Germans actually unite, but they defeat France. And it's earth-shattering because, first of all, the French had the legacy of Napoleon. The French were the big boys on the block for decades. And not only were they defeated, but the Germans really layeth the smacketh on them hard. In 1 year, really less than 1 year, the Germans did what the American Union tried to do to the South in the Civil War, which took over 4 years. So it was earth-shattering. How did it happen? Well, it just so happened that at that time, the major thinker of the time was a guy named Jean Monnet, and he was the intellect who really explained Napoleon. And we'll get into a little of Napoleon, but to know Napoleon was the ultimate disruptor. He disrupted the entire Western continent. Jean Monnet had a playbook and how to win, and everyone followed it. Even American generals during the Civil War followed Jean Monnet. They even said that the average American general had two things. He had sword in one hand and Jean Monnet in the other. And the idea was that this was French, that the French dominated military thinking at the time. Well, the Germans pounced on the French. They beat them decisively. How did they do it? Who did they follow? Whose ideas did they follow? Well, it was ultimately it came down to Clausewitz. The man who won was General Moltke the Elder, but he, you could say, was a proponent of this man named KARL von Clausewitz, who died years before. And today we're going to look at Clausewitz because he is fascinating for this reason. Jean Monnet gave a practical, almost like a business-like book. If you want to succeed, you go to A to B to C, very practical. How to win, a manual of how to win. Clausewitz writes a book called On War, or Vom Krieg, as they say in German. And On War is a book about how to think about war, how to think about fighting. And it's not a practical playbook. It is an incredibly difficult read, and I would tell you Clausewitz is quoted all the time, and I usually never really read. So I'll get to that more later. But to say that, to understand Clausewitz, we have to understand two things that really happened in the 19th century, which are really, really important, and you'll see commonalities to them today. The first is we're going to look at Napoleon real quickly, and then we're going to cover philosophy, the actual cultural philosophy which helped shape the ideas and actually really influenced Clausewitz in his writings. If you like this video, please hit like and share it with your friends. Look, the more people who like Edge Challenges and watch it, the greater the impacts to community, business, and leaders.